This week, the latest Marvel show, What If, premieres on Disney+. So let's talk about it. What If is a new animated show from Marvel Disney+, and essentially it looks at familiar MCU stories and asks the question, what if you change just one detail at the start of the story? How would that change what unfolds? Each week is a new what if scenario, and it explores them in a variety of different ways. This is a show that I've been curious about ever since they announced it, because growing up I actually read the What If comics that did the exact same thing, explored all these what if scenarios. As a point of reference, Disney sent out the first 3 episodes of the show for critics to review. That's what I will be talking about here, as spoiler-free as is possible. I believe only the first episode drops this Wednesday. With that said, join me down below in the comments section. Let me know your level of anticipation for What If. What are you expecting from the show? And let's get started talking about the good. Right off the bat, the show is an interesting novelty inside of the MCU. It plays kind of like the Twilight Zone. You have the Watcher, played by Jeffrey Wright, as this narrator at the beginning and the end of the episodes, and sometimes a little bit in the middle, kind of framing what you're seeing, giving some context, exploring the scenario, and even just that little detail of having him as this narrator really does kind of add this extra level to the storytelling, as he'll add little profound nuggets about the importance of small little moments and how big their implications can be for the future as we're telling these stories. Other thing I really enjoyed about the show is that each of the episodes has way more to them than just the initial what if scenario. So you have what's shown in the trailers, the change that's really obvious, but then there's this big gigantic trickle down from that to where it doesn't play out as straightforward as you're expecting. There's the big change, and then all this other stuff happens. You see different characters in different lights because character number one's story changed, therefore everyone else's story changed as well. Another nice touch, the episodes are all very different from one another, and not simply because they involve different characters and different what if scenarios, but the nature under which they use this what if scenario is quite different. I'll elaborate more on that in the mixed section, but this is going to be a show with a whole lot of variety to it, a bunch of different storytelling techniques, and they're being creative in how they treat this what if concept and what you can do with it when you don't have to worry about continuity and can just go wild with these characters and these scenarios. Also, some of them had more emotion than I was expecting. I just expected the novelty of exploring different worlds and things like that. But because they're taking these characters that we know from a different environment and putting them in different scenarios, they have different emotional arcs because of that. The payoff is quite different, and I really appreciated the way some of that unfolded. Along those same lines, since they're telling these stories that are so different and you're getting invested in the characters, by the time they get to the end of it, a lot of times you want to see more of the story. You want to see where it's going, and all of them kind of end with a bit of a cliffhanger, some sort of tease of what is next, and I'm not sure if that's what season 2 will be, following up each of these episodes, but I want to see that next episode. They do a good job of getting you invested, so you're like, oh, that could be cool. And because it is animated and these what if scenarios, I just think they're able to get away with a little bit more, where they're talking about the action being a bit more over the top, certain characters being a little bit goofier, or just getting very fantastical in certain things that take place. It just works better in this format, and so it just opens some doors for them to take some new risks, allow some things to happen that are fun to see. And finally, the animation here, I really dug it. It's just different from anything else that I've seen in recent memory, in the way that the smoothness of people's motion, it feels like real people turning their heads and things like that, while clearly being animation at the same time. It's highly stylized, but not in a way that calls too much attention to itself. And so just a nice way to visualize things in a different way. From there, let's move on to the mixed aspects of the show. So the mixed category aren't necessarily good or bad things. This is just stuff I wanted to discuss, and in particular with this show, if you don't want to know anything going in, you want to go out totally cold, use the chapter markers down below and just skip ahead to the bad section. I'm not going to give away any specifics, but I'm going to talk about the subject of each episode, just the basic premise and how it uses the what if scenario. No plot specifics whatsoever. Episode number 1 is what if Peggy Carter got the super soldier serum? And episode 1 basically plays out as an alternate version of Captain America, the First Avenger. There's a whole lot of things are wildly different about it. The basic broad summary would essentially be the same as Captain America, the First Avenger. The specifics, totally different. Episode 2 is what if T'Challa was taken by Yondu and became Star-Lord. And this one is totally different from Guardians of the Galaxy. And the plot that they have is totally different from the movie of Guardians of the Galaxy. The third episode is a what if scenario that's a mystery. Basically, we're trying to find out what was changed before the episode started. And it takes place the week that Thor 1, Iron Man 2, and The Incredible Hulk takes place. So 3 different episodes that use the what if concept very differently. And I really appreciate it about the show is that they're doing that. You don't know what to expect in the format, and then from there, they take the characters off in all kinds of crazy directions. From there, let's move on to the bad. And I just think inherently with a show like this, it's gonna be a bit more uneven. With the previous Marvel Disney Plus shows, they functionally were 4 5-hour movies broken up into 6 to 9 episodes with a small writing team and sometimes just a single director making all of the episodes. In which case, you naturally have a lot of continuity inside of that. With a show like this, where each episode not only has a different set of characters, it's set in a different universe and telling very different types of stories. Some episodes you're gonna like, and some episodes you're not going to like nearly as much. Different people are gonna resonate with different what if scenarios and different styles of storytelling. And that's just what happens when you do a show like this. Second kind of issue here is that there's some pacing issues. In particular with episode 1, that is a little bit more of let's do this movie, but different. They're trying to take a 2-hour movie and condense it into 30 minutes. In which case, it just feels like it's moving at breakneck speed, trying to get through all the plot points very quickly. No room to pause and reflect, breathe a little bit, because it has to get the whole story in 30 minutes. The other episodes had better pacing to them, where because they weren't as tied to the structure of a previous existing movie, they told their own stories. They were more straightforward and fit the runtime a little bit better. But all 3 of them move very quickly. And then the third one on here is, I think, inherently, because they are just what if scenarios that are in continuity of the MCU, they have said that this show is canon, but it's continuity within the multiverse. It's a multiverse place we're probably never ever gonna see again. So there's fun in it, it's novelty, but inherently it's inconsequential. We're just seeing hypotheticals. Hypothetical the show. Let's just explore something and then it's over with, and it doesn't matter for anything moving forward. And the last issue, and this will be a nitpick for some of you and a big deal for others, the voice acting is inconsistent. And what I mean by that is like 70% of it are returning actors and 30% are voice actors replacing voices that you know very well. And so because some of them are so familiar and so obviously big famous actor person returning and others are so clearly not, it draws attention to the voice talent. You start paying attention to, is that the person or is it not the person? You're trying to guess who is whatsy, and that's not what you should be doing while watching a show. Real quick, before I give you my final thoughts, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. If you've seen it, let me know what did you think about it, and if you haven't seen it yet, What are your expectations for the show? Also know that this week I'm doing this big gigantic project ranking all 45 theatrically released DC films. The first part is already out and the next two will come out over the next few days. You can check that out right up here when this video is over. Now, I think because of the nature of this show, it's designed more for hardcore MCU fans, people that know these movies and these characters inside and out. So when you take them and swap out the details, it's interesting. It's fresh. There's just a novelty to it. But to the casual fan that doesn't know the MCU as well, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot there for that person. It's interesting, it's different, but I don't think that this is necessarily must-watch MCU. I don't think it's gonna win a new batch of fans to the universe. It's just a nice exploration for people that have been watching these movies way too much for way too long. It's like, let's remix the whole thing, and that's a nice novelty. But that's what this is. So for Marvel fans, especially if you like the Twilight Zone, absolutely, definitely check this one out. But if you're not super into the MCU, I'm not sure that there's much here for you. Let me know what you thought down below in the comment section. If you want to see that video with my ranking of all 45 DC films, at least part one, you can check that out right over there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.